Why don't you identify your question and I'll come back to you. And the president and this entire administration are focused on that every day. I can go through the very long list of economic actions this president has taken. I know you work for Bloomberg, so I'm sure you're well.
Some of those cabinet members were caught off guard by the email.
Nobody was caught off guard. The president campaigned on reigniting the Trump economy and fixing the mess that was created by the previous administration. We know they created an economic and an inflation nightmare for the American people, and I'm not going to stand up here and lie to you like my predecessor.
Musk has obviously been doing a lot of work. He's been working every day, and a lot of the time weekends. He is designated as a special government employee, which means that he can only work 130 days per year. Is the White House expecting him to limit his work to 130 days, or are you going to work around those rules? Do you want to see him extend beyond the 130
So today is February 25th, so I think we've been here about 35 days roughly. So ask me in another 100 days. That Democrats behaving like children would be the least surprising thing of the night.
Karoline Leavitt just delivered a press briefing that sent shockwaves through the political world. This time, she didn't just push back, she went all in, tearing apart the so-called woke Democrats live on air. One by one, she exposed their contradictions, leaving no room for spin. She kicked things off with the hot-button issue of tariffs, and she didn't hold back. Armed with cold, hard facts, she immediately dismantled their arguments, shutting down the opposition with a level of precision that left even her critics scrambling for a response.
The president mentioned a little disturbance during his remarks yesterday. The CEO of Target says that consumers will likely see prices go up on everything from strawberries to bananas to avocados. How long should Americans expect to pay higher prices? Are we talking a week, a couple of days, a few months?
Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can assure the American people is that this president and this administration is doing everything they can. And I would remind you and everybody else in this room that it's because of the previous administration's economic policies that Americans were left with record high inflation. Inflation throughout Joe Biden's entire 48 months in office was at or above 3%. It hit record highs, as you know. And there's a whole list of what the Biden economic disaster this president was left to clean up. It's been a month, but he's working hard every single day to do just that.
Follow up on the carve-out. Sorry to cut you off there. The U.S. imported $43 million worth of eggs from Canada. I know you mentioned some of the exemptions when it comes to automakers. Will there be any other carve-outs, including for eggs? We know prices are soaring for Americans.
I've always wondered, why do these reporters march in with such intense, almost obsessive expressions, as if they're on a personal crusade against Karoline Leavitt? It's like they're determined to catch her off guard. And of course, their questions always seem carefully crafted to uplift the so-called woke liberals while taking cheap shots at the right. But just wait until you see Karoline's response. She doesn't just answer, she flips the script entirely, dismantling their biased narratives and serving up a response that leaves them scrambling.
Is open to hearing about additional exemptions. He always has open dialogue, and he'll always do, what's right, what he believes is right for the American people. But again, as for the egg crisis in this country, the president is wholeheartedly committed to ensuring we're increasing our egg supply, and we're also bringing down cost. And Secretary Rollins has been all over this issue. She comes from an agricultural background and family. That's why she's leading that very important department. She wrote an amazing op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. She's been all over the media talking about her plan. She has a real plan. The president endorses it. And he even, gave her an off-the-prompter shout-out last night to say, Brooke, I'm counting on you. It's an important issue. And this White House is working with Secretary of Agriculture every single day.
Very disappointing.
So you didn't stand up for anything?
The president got before the American people, didn't talk about how he could drive down grocery prices.
How does Karoline always manage to deliver the perfect comeback that leaves these so-called woke liberals speechless? It's honestly impressive, and if you remember this clip, you'll see exactly why Democrats constantly shift the conversation to distractions, like egg prices, rather than addressing the real issues they've created.
The president campaigned on reigniting the Trump economy and fixing the mess that was created by the previous administration. We know they created an economic and an inflation nightmare for the American people, and I'm not going to stand up here and lie to you like my predecessor did about the state of our economy. We understand there are people that are hurting, and this administration is wholeheartedly committed to ensuring that those individuals see relief and price reductions and tax cuts and in less regulation regulations that are burdensome on their household and their businesses, and the president and this entire administration are focused on that every day. I can go through the very long list of economic actions this president has taken. I know you work for Bloomberg, so I'm sure you're well aware of them, but I can assure the American people that the president is very much focused on bringing down the cost of living crisis in this country that was created by the previous administration.
They're always fixated on rising prices, like that's the only thing that matters. But let's be real, no one's actually losing sleep over the cost of eggs right now. Yet, as expected, it's not just one senator pushing this narrative. Another so-called woke journalist just had to bring up the same tired argument again.
Hearing from the president and his cabinet where they're on campus tomorrow, I hope you guys are excited.
So some of those cabinet members were caught off guard by the email.
Nobody was caught off guard.
A few departments said they were caught off guard. The FBI was, the DOJ was.
Did anonymous sources say that, or did the cabinet secretary say that?
The cabinet secretaries and others have said that they were not aware that this was happening. So I'm wondering, like, will there be a give and take tomorrow at the cabinet meeting? Is Elon Musk or the president open to any type of dialogue about who is actually in charge of the chain of command of these workers?
I would reject the premise of your question, Jeff. The cabinet secretaries have not said that. I know anonymous sources, probably career bureaucrats, have leaked that to many of you in this room. But as I said at the beginning of this press conference, everybody is working as one team, and the president respects the decisions of his cabinet secretaries to tell his staff, their staff, not to respond to that email because they did so out of interests of national security, and they don't want to obviously risk confidential information. It's pretty common sense.
This is how you completely shut down someone using their own words against them. Pure logic, no nonsense. And this is exactly why I admire Karoline Leavitt. She speaks with unwavering confidence, fully aware that these so-called woke reporters aren't asking real questions to inform or help people. They're just looking for gotcha moments and stirring up chaos. But here's what sets Karoline apart. She doesn't just sit back and take it. She doesn't shy away or play it safe. Instead, she fires back with precision, completely dismantling their arguments, just like she did with this reporter.
Sure, Jordan.
Thanks, Karoline. So, what does it say that the Democrats, while they couldn't stand for Americans or stand for victims, they stood for war and clapped for war and clapped for 5 more years of war?
Yeah, you know, the president addressed that last night, I think, when he called out Senator Elizabeth Warren and said that, again, as I said in my opening speech, very telling that the Democrats refused to clap for American people and American interests and American priorities, but they did clap for the country of Ukraine, which, by the way, the president's working very hard to end that war. So Democrats should be applauding him for actually doing something about it.
That was absolutely brilliant. She shut him down before he even had a chance to spin his narrative. These folks are bending over backward, desperately trying to paint the Trump administration in a negative light. But here's the reality, it's backfiring. Instead of damaging Trump's image, they're only exposing their own desperation, embarrassing themselves time and time again.
Again, you've spoken recently about how what happened in the Oval Office last week gave Americans an inside look into behind-the-scenes discussions with Zelensky. Is this how he treated Joe Biden and just treated him disrespectfully and received billions of dollars?
Well, it's a very interesting question. I don't know if anybody in here asked my predecessor who stood at this podium about that, but there was a report from NBC News that President Biden also got increasingly frustrated with President Zelensky when he was handing out blank checks and President Zelensky kept asking for more. Joe Biden was quite frustrated with that. So again, as I've said repeatedly, Friday revealed the frustrations that this administration has had in closed-door negotiations with the Ukrainians. However, President Zelensky did put out a statement yesterday, which we believe is a positive step forward, and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz has been talking to his Ukrainian counterparts, and so we're in the midst of this, and we'll...
This is exactly how common sense operates, and if you paid attention, you'd see how the so-called woke crowd sat in silence, refusing to acknowledge even a single achievement by Trump for America. The message couldn't be clearer. These people aren't here to support progress. They're working to tear the country apart from within. But before we shift our focus to Caitlin Collins, let's take a moment to see how she completely humiliated MSNBC. Watch this.
Questions. One on the reprieve that is being granted to these 3 automakers for 1 month on the tariffs on Canada and Mexico. How did the president settle on 1 month?
The reciprocal tariffs will go into effect on April 2nd, and he feels strongly about that. No matter what, no exemption. So that's where the 1 month comes from.
Does he expect them to be able to shift production within a month?
He told them that they should get on it, start investing, start moving, shift production here to the United States of America, where they will pay no tariff. That's the ultimate goal.
And on the conversations between the White House and the Ukrainians and the letter that President Trump revealed last night that he got from President Zelensky, Director Ratcliffe said today that the president has paused also intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Is that temporary or is that permanent?
I believe what the National Security Council told me in regards to that was that they paused or they are reconsidering the funding for Ukraine, as you saw, the pause on the funding. As for intelligence matters, I would refer you to either the National Security Council or the CIA as well.
But they're considering lifting or reinstating the military aid going to Ukraine, which they paused.
Again, it's a pause for a review.
This is exactly how common sense operates, and if you paid attention, you'd see how the so-called woke crowd sat in silence, refusing to acknowledge even a single achievement by Trump for America. The message couldn't be clearer. These people aren't here to support progress. They're working to tear the country apart from within. But before we shift our focus to Kaitlan Collins, let's take a moment to see how she completely humiliated MSNBC. Watch this.
Minerals are in the east of Ukraine, not far from the front lines and in areas that Russia has occupied. Will you direct President Putin to withdraw his forces from those areas if there's U.S. interest there?
Well, we'll take a look at the time. We have a lot of area. It's a very big area we're talking about. So we'll take a look. I'll study that and I'll see.
And who would protect those minerals if they are U.S. interests? Would that be Ukrainian forces, European forces?
The agreement will protect them.
U.S. forces?
Agreement, yeah. We're signing an agreement. You know?
Right, but what if Russia tries to invade or there's Russian aggression in those spots? What would
I just told you, I don't think that's going to happen. And if that were going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal. If I thought that was going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal.
Some people may wonder why.
They ought to focus on CNN on survival, not asking me these ridiculous questions.
Why you have confidence that Putin won't violate the deal?
Focus on surviving, because CNN's got such low ratings. I don't think they're going to survive.
People will ask why you have confidence Putin won't violate the deal.
This is classic Kaitlan Collins. She's not looking for real answers. Instead, she fires off one loaded question after another, hoping to set a trap. But this time, with Karoline Leavitt in the hot seat, things aren't unfolding the way Collins expected. For some reason, Collins never seems to acknowledge a direct response or admit when she's wrong. But when it comes to Trump, he doesn't entertain the back and forth. He shuts it down, delivering his version of the facts without hesitation. The question is, will they recognize the warning signs before it's too late, or are they on a one-way path to irrelevance? What do you think? Is this just a rough patch, or are we witnessing the slow downfall of mainstream media giants? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over.